Hello, my name is Danni Quintos, and I am a poet and writer and teacher. And today we're going to be talking about imagery. So, what is an image? An image is a visual representation of something. For example, a photograph, a piece of art, a representation on a screen. That's probably the kind of image that you all are familiar with, the definition of image that you're familiar with, like a picture or something that you can see, right? In poetry, an image is a little bit different. Something in a poem that sparks the senses. So despite the definition of the word image meaning picture, imagery in a poem can evoke any of the five senses: smell, taste, touch, feeling, hearing, and sight. So let's look at some examples of an image. So this is a poem by one of my former teachers, Kelly Norman Ellis, and this poem is called Raised by Women. I was raised by chitlin eating, vegetarian cooking, cornbread so good you want to lay down and die baking. Go on, baby, get yourself a plate kind of women. Some thick-haired Angela Davis Afro-styling, girl, lay back and let me scratch your head, sort of women. Some big-legged, high-yellow, mocha brown, hip-shaking, mini-skirt wearing, hip-huggers hugging, daring debutantes, grooving, I know I look good type of women. Some tea-sipping, white-glove wearing, got married too soon, divorced in just the nick of time, better say yes ma'am to me type of sisters. Some finger-popping, boogaloo dancing, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, James Brown listening, go on girl, shake that thing, kind of sisters. Some face-slapping, hands-on hips, don't mess with me, pack your bags and get the hell out of my house sort of women. Some PhD-toting, poetry writing, portrait painting, I'll see you in court, world-traveling, stand back, I'm creating type of queens. I was raised by women. So in this poem, there's a lot of imagery, right? The whole poem is just littered with imagery. There's imagery all over the place. And the beautiful thing about this poem is that it's so specific to this writer's voice and so specific to her experience. You can kind of hear Kelly Norman Ellis's voice. I know I don't read it the way that Kelly Norman Ellis might. I definitely don't. But the specifics are so beautiful. Chitlin eating, vegetarian cooking, cornbread so good you want to lay down and die baking. Go on, baby, get yourself a plate kind of women. So you can imagine all these different kinds of foods. The imagery is rich in the taste sense, right? Chitlins, cornbread, and it's so good, right? And then there's the imagery of the kind of hair and the things that these women say to the speaker of this poem. Lay back and let me scratch your head, right? There's beautiful images of a more proper kind of woman that you might imagine, tea sipping, white glove wearing, got married too soon. And that kind of communicates an image of something more ladylike or proper or old-fashioned, right? And then you see later here, it gets into the music. So there's not only the music of the language, but the music that she references: finger popping, boogaloo dancing, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud, which is a James Brown quote. Go on, girl, shake that thing, right? So you can imagine the music that they're listening to, and the kinds of ways that they dance and enjoy the music. So there's sound invoked in that image. There's also an emotional kind of image that's evoked, face slapping, hands on hips, don't mess with me, right? And you can imagine kind of that these women are saying this with a kind of anger or ferocity, some passion behind it in those image. And then at the end, you kind of get back to Kelly Norman Ellis, or the way that I imagined her, PhD toting, poetry writing, portrait painting. So these women who are not only incredible cooks and eaters, they take care of each other, They love to dance and have a good time. They've grown up with all of these kind of expectations of ladylike, getting married, getting divorced, better say yes ma'am to me, enjoying music, specific kind of music, James Brown's, the kinds of things they say when they're upset with people. And then you see the PhD toting, poetry writing, portrait painting, the art that they create, and the creativity and the accomplishments, right? World traveling, stand back, I'm creating, right? So this is a really good example of imagery, right? It's not necessarily just pictures, but it's evoking food. It's evoking this kind of communion between these women. And it's also evoking images of properness and of music and dance and ferocity, having a good time, passion and hobbies and accomplishments, right? So you can, by this poem, you can imagine the kinds of women that raised the speaker. And in this case, I believe the speaker is the poet, Kelly Norman Ellis. You can kind of picture who these women are by these beautiful particulars, by these beautiful images that Kelly Norman Ellis is bringing to the page. This next poem is by the poet Amy Nezuko Matatil. It's called One Bite. Miracle fruit changes the tongue. One bite, and for hours all you eat is sweet. Placed alone on a saucer, it quivers like it's cold from the ceramic, even in this Florida heat. Small as a coffee bean, red as jam, I can't believe. The man who sold it to my father on Interstate 542 had one tooth, one sandal, and called me Dutta, Dutta. I wanted to ask, what is that? But the red buds teased me into our car and away from his fruit stand. One bite, and if you eat it whole, it softens and swells your teeth like a mouthful of mallow. So how long before you lose a sandal and still walk? How long before you lose the sweetness? So this poem evokes a lot of taste images, right? It's talking about the fruit. One bite, and for hours, all you eat is sweet. So you can imagine eating something and it changes the way you taste. It makes everything that you taste after that taste sweet. So that's a very strong image that makes you kind of imagine, it makes your tongue imagine what that might feel like or what that might taste like, right? And then she's got some more visual images. Placed alone on a saucer, it quivers like it's cold from the ceramic, even in this Florida heat. So you can kind of imagine maybe even something that looks like Jell-O quivering, something kind of gelatinous, right, on a little saucer. And then saying in this Florida heat, it places you in a specific place in Florida, in a specific kind of heat, which is Florida heat, which is a muggy, humid heat that sometimes we have in Kentucky, right? And that image of the Florida heat is a sensory image. You might imagine what it feels like to be in Florida heat, to be in a very humid kind of heat. And then we have another visual image, small as a coffee bean, red as jam, I can't believe. So you can imagine the size, you can imagine how big a coffee bean is, pretty small. And then red as jam, along with the quivering image, it kind of makes you think of something that's a little bit translucent or even glowing, the way that jam is, right? And then there's the image of the man who sold it to her father, which the image is so specific. He had one tooth, one sandal, and called me Dutta, Dutta. So you can imagine that this man is not somebody that you might encounter every day. He's got one tooth, right? So that means that tells you something very specific about this person, that all of his teeth are missing for some reason. It doesn't really evoke the image of a young person. The people that you know probably with one tooth are probably toddlers, right? And she's talking about a man, who's got a fruit stand. So one tooth, and then one sandal. What happened to his other sandal? That's a story in itself, right? But it gives you a very specific image of who this man is. He's got one tooth, one sandal, and then the words that he calls her, dutta, dutta. I think that is the way that she writes his accent. He's calling her daughter, right? Daughter, daughter. I wanted to ask, what is that? But the red buds teased me into our car and away from his fruit stand. So you can imagine her. I think that the speaker is a little girl in this poem. Sure, her father bought it, and she's going back to the car, going back away from the fruit stand where she found this fruit. And then one bite, and if you eat it whole, it softens and swells your teeth like a mouthful of mallow. Can you imagine your teeth becoming soft and swollen? Mallow, I mean, I imagine there's like the meaning of mallow, the plant, right? But then I also automatically am thinking of marshmallows, like my teeth are turning into marshmallows. And then these two questions at the end that end the poem. So how long before you lose a sandal and still walk? How long before you lose the sweetness? So she's asking, how long is it going to be until I become like this man who's got one tooth and one sandal? How long until I can taste other things that aren't sweet anymore, right? Because one bite and for hours all you eat is sweet. So these images are very vivid, they're specific, and they appeal to the senses. There's taste, there's the feeling of the heat, there's the image of the man and the image of the fruit on the plate, right? And even what the man says, dutta, dutta, it's an image that you can hear. You can imagine what his accent might sound like. So this poem is lovely. It's full of images. One Bite by Amy Nezuko Mutato. So this third piece is by Sandra Cisneros. It's called Hairs, and it's not a poem, it's a vignette, but it's written by a poet, and you can kind of hear the poetry in it. It's very poetic. And so this is Hairs. Everybody in our family has different hair. My papa's hair is like a broom all up in the air. And me, my hair is lazy. It never obeys barrettes or bands. Carlos's hair is thick and straight. He doesn't need to comb it. Nenny's hair is slippery, slides out of your hand. And Kiki, who is the youngest, has hair like fur. But my mother's hair, like little rosettes, like little candy circles, all curly and pretty because she pinned it in pin curls all day, sweet to put your nose into when she is holding you, and you feel safe, is the warm smell of bread before you bake it. It is the smell when she makes room for you on her side of the bed, still warm with her skin, and you sleep near her, the rain outside falling, and Papa snoring, the rain, and Mama's hair that smells like bread. So this is one of my favorite writers, I have to say. And into this very small amount of writing, there's so much imagery, right? You can imagine the visual imagery of the hair, Papa's hair like a broom all up in the air, so sticking straight up. Hair that's lazy, it doesn't obey barrettes and bands. Carlos's hair that's thick and straight, he doesn't need to comb it. And then Nenny's hair is slippery, slides out of your hand. So that's the not only the visual image, but the feeling sensory image, right? Kiki, who is the youngest, has hair like fur. So you can imagine maybe like a kitten's fur or a rabbit's fur, really soft and short, right? And then this part about the mother, which is so rich with imagery. She compares it to little rosettes, little candy circles, curly and pretty, because she pinned it all day. And then there's the smell image, sweet to put your nose into when she's holding you and you feel safe, is the warm smell of bread before you bake it. So the sensory image of being held, the warmth of that, the feeling image, against your skin, right? The warm smell of bread before you bake it, so the smell image. And then she makes room for you on her side of the bed, still warm with her skin, and you sleep near her. So that that sensory image of the warmth of that sensation of being close to the mother, and then the rain falling and Papa snoring, hearing sensory image, right? The snoring, the rain, and Mama's hair that smells like bread. This Hairs vignette is a beautiful example of imagery. So now it's your turn to write. The way that we're going to practice finding images is we're going to start with lists. So you're going to choose to make one of these lists. The first option is other people's moms. So if you don't know their first names or their last names, that's okay. You could write just Bobby's mom, for example. The second choice for your list is other people's siblings. So same thing, if you don't remember their names, their first or last names, how to spell them even, that doesn't really matter. As long as you know who it is, you could just write Nick's sister, right? And then the third option is people in charge when you were a kid. So this can be anybody that you can think of who was in charge. When you're a kid, pretty much everybody else is in charge, right? So this can be teachers, babysitters, parents, older siblings. It can be friends who are really bossy and always wanted to be the boss too, right? So choose to make one of these lists. And if you get stuck or you're done early, then try to make another list. Choose another one on there, okay? So I'll give you 1 minute to make this list. Okay, so finish up that last thing on your list. And when you're done with your list, look over it. And I want you to choose one person on that list that you can connect to a vivid memory, a specific memory that you can remember really well. So whoever you've got on your list that you can think of a strong, specific memory, one memory, circle that person's name, okay? All right, so you've chosen someone on your list associated with a vivid memory. What we're going to do now is look around this memory. So I'm going to ask you questions about the memory as you write. And what I want you to do is to keep your pen moving. Try not to stop writing, okay? So try to keep writing. If you get stuck or if you're done writing early, maybe the question just required a really short answer, just draw a swirl on your paper until the next question, because the whole point here is you want to just keep writing, keep your pen moving as much as possible. You might even want to write, I can't think of anything else. If you write that sentence down, hopefully I'll get to the next question by the time you're done writing that and you'll be ready to keep writing. Now, if I'm going too fast, just move on to the next question. You know, so long as you can remember the answer to the question, you can read your writing. That's the most important part. Okay. All right. So are you all ready to write? All right. So what you're going to do is imagine yourself in this memory that you've chosen that's associated with one of the people from your list, the specific vivid memory. Okay. So imagine that memory, and you're going to answer all of these questions from that memory. So when I say, how old are you? I'm not asking how old you are today. I'm asking how old you are in the memory. If I say, what's the weather like? Don't answer what the weather is like today. Answer what the weather was like in that memory. Okay? All right. So keep your pens moving. Ready? Where are you? What are you doing? Who else is there? What are they doing? What kind of mood does this person seem to be in? What time of day does it seem to be? What season is it? About how old are you in this memory? How old is the other person in this memory? Why are you there? Why are they there? Is there anyone who just left or who may be coming? What do they look like? What is in front of you in this memory? What is to your right? To your left? What's behind you? What's above your head? And what's below your feet? Okay, come to a stopping point. Hopefully that wasn't too fast and you were able to answer these questions and look around in this memory. So this next part, what we're going to do is you're going to write in this memory. So what you're going to do is you're going to write in the present tense in first person. And that means you're going to write as if it is happening to you in this moment. You're not going to say it did happen. You're going to say it's happening right now, right? In the memory. And you're going to write in first person, which means you're going to start with I am, with I sentences, because it's coming from your perspective. So for example, I am 3 years old and I am in my friend Tony's yard. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to write in this memory. Remember to stay in present tense and first person, I am, and explain what you see in the memory and what's going on. So come to a stopping point, and I hope that what you wrote was something interesting, something that surprised you. I hope you were able to remember more than you realized, and that you learned something about images and you wrote something cool. I wish I could be there to hear the things that you guys are writing.